Life and mind are systemic. That's our next presupposition. What does that mean? It means that whatever happens in the mind happens in the body. Whatever happens in the body influences what happens in the mind. Our bodies, the way we move, how we think, our physiology, our posture, the amount of movement we have, the types of movement we have, all of these things have a direct impact on the chemicals our bodies produce. When it produces certain chemicals in abundance, when it reduces certain chemical productions, it has a massive impact. So whenever we take someone on a journey of coaching, we need to realize that if we have a shift in physiology, there's a shift in the mind. If we have a thought pattern shift, our bodies will respond. If our state is different, our bodies will respond accordingly. For example, if someone is very depressed, if they're in a very sad state, very often the shoulders will be drawn forward, the fists will clench, and we almost go into a bit of a fetus position. That's usually a physical sign that mentally something is not 100% kosher. Something is not as well as we hope it would be. When someone is in a positive emotional state, you will notice their shoulders are back a little bit more, the chin is up, that palms are showing upwards or outwards, and there's a physical difference in the human being. In the same sense, very often if we stand up, we can stand up out of our problems. We can take a step towards an outcome or a solution. If we physically interact with our mental thoughts, it creates a stronger belief system around them. Very often as humans, we need to respond physically in line with our positive thoughts to create a stronger, sustainable reaction inside of our entire body. So as a coach, I need to always remember mind and body are systemic. They're part of the same cybernetic system. And I can use the body as a measure, or I can use the body as a tool to influence the way I think. When I change the way I think, my body also responds accordingly. So these two are always interrelated. They interact the whole time, and we cannot separate the mind and the body from each other. They are systemic, part of the same cybernetic system, and the one will always impact the other. One of the reasons why we need to understand that mind and body are systemic processes is there's a concept called a feedback loop. So if something happens in the mind, that information is sent to the body via the nervous system. So if we have a negative emotional state, the nervous system tells the body we have a negative emotional state, and the body would respond accordingly. Vice versa, if the body is experiencing chronic pain or a lot of distress over a constant time frame, that message is also sent to the mind and very often has a very negative mental impact on people. So when we improve the body, when we improve our movement, when we improve our health, then that message also goes back through the feedback loop to the mind. The mind responds and sends another message back to the body. It's a consistent loop of information. If you look at the size of your nervous system, it is enormous, and there's a vast amount of data that's constantly sent up and down through the nervous system of the human body. The next factor that's really important about the statement, mind and body are systemic, is that in a lot of cases, when people want to treat something that's happening with another individual, and I'm talking about fields of psychology or counseling, whatever mental health fields people are in, then the signs, the approach that most organizations take is isolated approach. So if something is wrong in the body, they would only deal with the symptoms that the body is producing. If something is wrong mentally, they will only deal with what's wrong mentally. Our approach is completely different. Because we know and understand that this is a systemic process, we deal with the mind and the body. We need to bring both of them into alignment. So our approach is much more holistic, and we look at the systemic process. We deal with, as I mentioned, both mind and body at the same time. If the one shows signs of discomfort or a state that's unhealthy or unwanted, it's not treating only the problem or the symptoms in isolation. It's all about a more of a holistic approach in the mind and the body. The next concept we need to understand in the whole mind-body systemic is environmental impacts. When someone is in a situation environmentally where there's not support, where there's a lot of negative external influences that could be coming in through relationships or living conditions or even community support, structures and strategies that's in place in the community, these factors, even though they are external, but they are environmental, could have a direct mental impact on the person. So when we coach people, we very often would enter conversations, talk about mental states, but we need to also talk about environmental situations and conditions. Because in many cases, when we bring a shift in our environment, then we have an impact on our emotional state, which can be an improvement. So when we coach people, become very aware of not just what's going on in that person's life, but also what is going on around them. The good news about this understanding that mind and body are systemic is that it's a very complex but adaptive system. We are absolutely magnificent as humans to be able to look and understand what is happening to us and then adjust and adapt accordingly, meaning that we are capable of change. We can shift our maps, we can shift the way our body responds. We have the ability to measure what's happening internally and externally, and we can adapt to that change. We're not cast in stone. That's the one thing that makes us winners, that really puts us at the top of this world, is that knowledge that we can change. So in summary, it's a good thing to understand that mind and body are systemic, and it's even better to coach accordingly, to really approach our solutions with a more holistic and a more systemic approach, where we take everything into consideration and we guide clients in the correct direction, where they will feel better, have a positive experience, where mentally and physically they can fall into better habits, creating healthy lifestyles. And that's the goal of this understanding.